Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington, and joining me again, Kevin Durso. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well. This is a little unusual, but
definitely a little unusual. If you're
fun.
If you're watching on our YouTube channel, Kevin is not in the usual studio. He is live from the bowels of the Wells Fargo Center, as it were, or at least the press box area.
I would say the upstairs, not the bowels of the center,
Fair.
the upstairs, but nonetheless.
But yeah, so we got a lot to talk about here tonight. We got a
Definitely.
5-game winning streak. We got a team that, as it sits at the current moment, is second in the division. We'll talk about that a little bit. As we get into it here, check us out on the social media at YWT Podcast. Kevin is at Kevin_Durso. Make sure to check out Kevin's Instagram page for those post-game reactions and kind of all the stuff he's doing over there. Okay, so getting into it. Like I said here, Flyers have won 5 games in a row, Kevin.
Yeah. 5 in a row. I mean,
Kevin.
Yeah. I know what you're going to say.
It might be a little bit early in the show to just kind of come out with something like this, but
go ahead. I already know where you want to go, so just go for it.
It's November 19th.
Yep.
We'll talk a little bit about American Thanksgiving later in the show and what that means to standings and stuff, but
right.
Kevin.
Yes.
Kevin, are the Flyers good?
I don't know. I mean, in this moment, sure. I mean, you win 5 games in a row, then yeah, you're on a good run. And 10-7-1 is not a bad record by any stretch. But, you know, there's a lot of runway left in front of this here, for one. And two, you don't have, let's be real about something. You have a head coach who has every reason, because he pays attention to everything that gets written, said, you name it, who has every reason to kind of gloat about this and is not doing it. Instead is telling you when struggles happen, when the losing streaks happen, because he's bracing himself for it, I guess. So,
yeah, of course.
But on the other hand, you do have a team right now, because there's been a word that's been thrown around a lot in the last handful of days. You have a team that's kind of got a belief about themselves in terms of that they feel like they can win a lot of games and that they feel like they can win against any team. And they've kind of shown it. Like, take the Sunday night game out of play for a minute, because you're playing Columbus, and Columbus is at the bottom of the standings. And this was rough. I mean, like, there was reason this could have been worse than the 5-2 final that it was.
Okay, but how about the first half of that back-to-back?
Well, exactly. The other teams you're playing, and every team, the common thread of the 4 games before this was you played a team that beat you earlier in the year. And then you won against them. And certainly the last 2 of this, I think, the wins this week, because we profiled last week's show the wins in California, the Anaheim win, the LA win, and we knew there was one more test to go on the road trip first. And that was the Carolina game. Well, they passed that one, and then they come home, and when you realize that you're locked into a game with the defending Stanley Cup champions like that, when you're locked into a game like that, you want to win it, because you want to prove to yourself that you can handle that and that you can come out on that side. Like, it was setting up to go one of 2 ways. You were either going to find a way to win it, or you were going to lose it the same way you lost in Vegas. And they pulled it out. Entertaining game. I mean, we've said that a lot this year. These games are entertaining.
Honestly, that Flyers-Vegas game is one of the more entertaining games that we've seen several years. Honestly, the guy upstairs might have been on the ice for the last regular season game that exciting. It's just, it's been that long. It was a really fun hockey game, and the fact that that was your Saturday afternoon game.
Oh, I know, yeah.
Fantastic. The building was nice and full, nice and loud. Yeah. We love that. It was amazing.
I know, for sure.
But yeah, as we kind of look back a little bit, the week started here in terms of the games with a win over the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah.
In Carolina, nice rowdy environment. That Carolina team, that they always get up with a little bit more juice for the Flyers, right? You got the Rod Brindamore connection. This year you got the TDA connection. These teams, whether you like it or not, are linked. And the game and their division teams, right? Division rivals. And they haven't really met in the playoffs. They don't really have that entrenched division rivalry at this point, but they are still a divisional foe, and you do still face them several times a season.
Exactly.
in connection with the Rod Brindamore stuff and some of the roster stuff, like I said, they do always bring passionate games. We saw it right away. But what a game out of Carter.
Well, I mean, yes, you hit the nail on the head.
What a game out of Carter Hart, man. He always shows up for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Well, not to mention it was his first game back because we
Right.
still hadn't we thought we were going to see him Friday, then Saturday the previous week. Didn't happen. So now you get finally, handful of days off. Actually, that's really an extended period of time. You don't typically get Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off and then play a game on Wednesday, but they did.
Coming back from the West Coast road trip, they tend to give you a couple of days. So
maybe a couple, but like Tuesday is usually the max there. So
that's fair.
Getting the third day is pretty extreme, and they do get it. And the big thing is like outside of they scored the first goal and they scored early in the game. That was Owen Tippett, by the way, who I'm sure we're going to get into a couple more times this week because he had a week, for sure.
Oh yeah.
You get through that part of it, and the first period was, you're trying. There were moments in the first period where you're trying to find your footing against Carolina. Obviously, the way the third period was going to go because you knew they were going to come with pressure again. Like when you're playing from ahead, especially where you were, it's not too often you get games like that too, where like with the scoring touch and potential that Carolina has, you go scoreless in the third period. Doesn't happen a lot, and they did the job, especially and really that game, there were examples of it throughout, but that game was another example of, in the second period, they got scored on and they took a penalty right away. Mm-hmm. And you have a chance to let this game unravel, go the other way. They're not breaking in these situations. They're not finding, remember how last year there was so many, even earlier this year for that matter, there was a lot of finding the way to lose.
Yes.
You're seeing that so much less right now. Yeah. And like now they're finding ways to win, and finding ways to win is almost kind of unfair to say because they're really just earning these things. These are lunch pail wins.
Oh yeah, and these are wins that a Sean Couturier team finds.
Yeah, that's part of it.
It's you talk about a lunch pail player. Come on.
Sure.
And whether he ends up with the C or not, there's kind of some whatever. I'm not even going to call it speculation, but there's going to be talk, especially now that you're winning games and it's starting to feel good in the room. I don't know if he ends up with the C, but we all know that Sean Couturier has been a leader on this team for several years, right? Warren A, right? It was kind of been the de facto guy for a very long time.
It's actually, considering the fact that he's finally playing under John Tortorella because he didn't get to last year, it's unusual to see him without an A on the sweater a little bit because that was implemented without him playing a game. So it's definitely a little unusual.
It's strange, man. It's super weird to see Coots without the A.
Yeah.
I assume he'll get it back at some point, whether it's this season or, going into next or whatever the case is. But
sure. Potentially. I mean, I'm not going to try to figure out John Tortorella in the letter game here, right. But
fair enough. And another part of a Sean Couturier game style is the penalty kill.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Can we talk about how good this team's penalty kill has been? They scored again on Sunday evening. They're fifth of the season to lead the league, by the way. Mm-hmm. And it's a 2-on-0 rush from Hathaway and Paling. Mm-hmm. And they find a way to get it in. There's some review. There's some, controversy. I thought we were going to have a situation like it happened just the other night.
Anaheim.
Yeah, where I thought it was Anaheim, where the puck went in. It clearly went in.
Oh, I know. And I thought that as I was watching this because I'm like, I think again, I'm like, there's about maybe this much space. And
it was close enough that I was waiting for it.
For the YouTube audience, here's my visual for you. Look at my fingers telling you how much space I think was there. There wasn't a lot, but
it was close.
But it was one of those situations. I actually didn't even because the crowd was going was making so much noise over the fact that they thought it was in because the player so adamantly thought it was in that I didn't even hear the official come over the microphone and say the call on the ice is goal because there wasn't a signal. So he didn't signal goal and then say, let's go check it. They didn't make a signal and he just announced it. We have a goal on the ice. We're going to go review. Okay. So I didn't know that they were even going off of that. I thought they were just checking and then they came back with, we saw it. It's in. So what they were trying to do, as far as I can tell them, what they were trying to do was determine if there was any evidence that said it wasn't.
Correct. Yeah,
So
that's kind of the implications that we got out of the
they
broadcast.
still said confirmed though, which is good to know. Like, they didn't say the
Yes.
call stands. They said it was confirmed. So they got a look that was worth it. I thought the in-net camera really had it there.
Also, if you've been listening to 32 Thoughts recently, Jeff Merrick has been discussing his use of verbiage. Jeff doesn't like the phrase, it's a good goal, because what is a bad goal? So I think Jeff Merrick would be pleased to note that the referee did just announce, we have a goal. So I think he's been listening to 32 Thoughts at the very least. So
Maybe.
But either way, that comes from a penalty kill chance, and this team has done a really good job of being aggressive on the penalty kill and doing an excellent job of shutting down other teams and creating offense. Like, how many penalty kills are capable of creating offense like this? Not many.
I mean, well, sure. And look, there's elements of it where this is also not sustainable because you can't.
Of course.
Wait, if you're going to be aggressive on the penalty kill and try to get those opportunities because of the fact that you're creating potential turnovers, I mean, I'm going to bring another player into this because, yes, you're talking about the Sean Couturier angle of a lot of this.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing another player into the mix because that shorthanded goal on Sunday night does not happen without Sean Walker.
That is correct.
Sean Walker makes the play to get possession. He makes the lead pass. Now, all of a sudden, you got two guys behind the defense. And to be honest, I can't, I thought it was possibly in those situations, you want to think slam dunk because you want to think that there's no way that, you do the quick give and go. And then the last guy finishes it off, goes upstairs, end of story. And he didn't go upstairs. Right. He kept it on the ice. So we had to kind of have a little ounce of drama there. But Sean Walker's been all over a bunch of different scoring situations. He's let's just say he had an assist on a Ryan Poehling goal in Carolina, scored another goal against Vegas, had another pair of assists in this game. I mean, against Columbus, I'm talking about now because we're talking about the goal he set up in the shorthanded goal helped set up.
Right.
It's like, this is one part of the equation when we're talking about, because when you bring into play the question, so are they actually good? It's like, well, what part of the equation is? Part of the equation is guys that you didn't think were going to play to a certain level, playing to a certain level. I talked about production. I talked about this team at the beginning of the season like they were going to be bottom 5 potentially, because that's what I genuinely. Well, sure, and that's because I genuinely looked at the defensive core on paper, and looked at everything. The guys that were coming back from year-long injuries, things like that, and went, it's not going to be that, like, it shouldn't be that good of a team because they have nobody who stands out as a clear number one defensively, they don't have, and they've got forwards with question marks. Technically your goalie's got question marks in terms of health. That plays into it too. So you're trying to figure out all of these different factors, and then it comes down to it. And I keep pulling the two biggest reasons, at least from the defensive side of it, the two biggest reasons that they even are where they are is Travis Sanheim has been outstanding for most of the year. I mean, handful of bad games in there, but not many. And he's been great pretty much every other game he's played.
Yep.
And then totally unexpected what you're seeing from Sean Walker. Didn't know what to, not to say that you had expectations coming in, didn't know what to expect, but certainly didn't think you were getting a player that was this useful. I thought like everybody else probably did. You were getting a player who was interchangeable in the lineup.
I thought he was a guy. Well,
exactly. But you were factoring in, they had young guys they wanted to play that they were going to want to look at. Igor Zamula's part of this picture. They've also got Mark Stahl. They've also got, I'm trying to figure out who the other one was that was in there. They got Nick Seeler.
I thought he was Michael Del Zotto.
It's not a bad way to look at it, but
right. And instead, he's like good. Remember when Michael Del Zotto was good? He's that.
Well, right, and he stepped up in a lot of situations, and you're seeing that cohesiveness from the defensive unit that's really kind of become a game changer right now for them.
You can tell. Okay, so in a grander scheme, on a bigger picture,
right?
You can tell that John Tortorella was involved in roster conversations this offseason.
Oh, for sure.
This is a John Tortorella team, and they are starting to implement John Tortorella systems.
Right.
And Travis Sanheim is starting to look a lot like Zach Werenski looked in Columbus.
A little bit, yeah. Well, and we kind of have already had the Sanheim conversation because
Right.
I think it was even last week we talked about it where I said that the whole idea where they tried. They thought they had a trade lined up for him. They tried to move him. He was available.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't happen, you got to go to the coach who may have had question marks about this guy who now has, the long-term contract that,
Yeah.
with no movement. And you sit there and you go, well, now you've got to make it work. Figure it out, make it work between the two of you. And both sides have done that.
Is leading the team in scoring considered making it work?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How about as a defenseman? 16 points?
Forget that part of it. You know what's making it work? It's not even the points. It's not the number of assists. It's none of that. Go look at his ice time night after night.
Stupid.
That's making it work. He's playing 25, 27 minutes a night sometimes.
Top five in the league.
Yeah.
As of right now, and I do not know if this has been updated for the game that they just played.
I will look up his ice time for you from Sunday.
Okay, Travis Sanheim is third in the league in ice time, and he's tied with Drew Doughty for second. They both average 25-57 a game behind only John Carlson.
Came close. Okay, so came close enough, and I'm going to assume the fact that they scored an empty netter in Sunday's game with 2.5 minutes left meant that by that point you could put him on the bench for the rest of the game. He still played 24-28.
Pretty good.
Yep. By the way, because I'm looking at all of these ice time numbers in front of me just from Sunday alone, by the way, props to Cam York for 20-34 in that game and played pretty well in his own right.
Cam York looked really solid against Columbus. He looked really, really solid.
Yeah, definitely one of his better ones this year.
Yes.
He's still got consistency issues. He's not certainly not near the level of Sanheim, and even Walker at this point. You know who Sean Walker is coming across as a little bit, and I'm not trying to compare ability, but just in terms of stylistically, the way you feel about him after watching now, what is this, 18 games of the season we're talking now?
Yeah, we're starting to get to the significant stats.
You know who he reminds me of a little bit?
Okay.
Matt Niskanen.
Yeah. Okay.
Because his play it's steady. It's consistently steady right now.
Yeah. And that is the kind of thing that is invaluable. And the Flyers looked to replicate that for 2.5 years after Matt Niskanen retired before they finally gave up.
Exactly.
That is the sort of thing. You need a guy who can lock it down, clear it out, get the thing you need, kill the penalty, get it off the glass, whatever you need in the moment, get the outlet pass, whatever you need in the moment. Sean Walker for this team is that guy.
Right. Now this is going to be one interesting conversation as the year goes on because he still has the one remaining year on his contract. The way he's playing currently makes it very movable.
So we're going to get into the playoff conversation then, huh?
Well, no. What I'm getting
because we have to. Right, because you're gonna talk about trading him, and the only logical response is, well, where are they in the playoff race?
Well, no, I wasn't going to do that because that's the conversation I'm saying that's going to happen. Is the conversation? Forget playoff structure for a second. Forget standings, all of it for a minute. You still have to have. You're going to end up having that interesting conversation about: do you, with 1 year remaining on the contract, do you move him because he's playing that well, or do you sit there and say maybe he's a piece of this puzzle?
And I mean, that's fair. Yeah, that's entirely fair.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you keep him and then wait and see what happens. I'm saying,
but if he's playing this well, does he want to sign with you, or does he walk to free agency? Right, and that comes down to the player.
That depends. I mean, that depends on Danny Briere being part of this because then let's face it, he's on your team. You can have a conversation anytime you want about this. And at least bring something to the forefront here. Not to the forefront, but bring something to the surface a little bit and start
having conversations.
Start scratching the surface on potential of whether or not you want to keep this guy or not. I mean, right now, the six that they seem to consistently play, at least for right now. And I thought, look, Mark Stahl has been cleared. He's, he could play at any point, really.
How do you put him in the lineup when the team can't lose?
Well, I'm not saying I understand that, and that's one of the reasons why you kind of usually keep it similar.
Yeah.
I've wondered if at any point during the course of this weekend, I thought it for Saturday, I thought it for Sunday potentially, and I'll think it for Wednesday going forward, that if Stahl's going to come back into the lineup, it's probably going to be for Zamula.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
That seems to be that seems to be the logistical answer here because it just feels like that's the guy he's willing to scratch. because we had a long conversation last weekend about Louis Belpedio too, and he's giving you some form of consistency right now that makes it tough to make a decision on him right now.
It's really tough
Now,
to take him out of the lineup.
Now, I think that question answers itself a lot easier if you sit there and you go, Mark Stahl's healthy, and so is Rasmus Ristolainen, because they both seem to be getting closer. Now, if you got both of them, like, you can't deny the fact that, look, Ristolainen's the better defenseman than Louis Belpedio, the guy who has all of 14, 15 NHL games. Definitely. But
the good news is Louis Belpedio is playing well enough that you have the luxury of waiting until Rasmus Ristolainen is 100%.
Correct.
And, like, at this point in time, it's working, right? Whether it's optimal or not is fine. Again, you said it. We're at game 18, right? If this team is going to be a productive team, which through almost 20 games, it certainly is starting to look like they might be.
Right.
Then you have to start, again, as the players, and this is obviously something we've talked about a lot, the fact that everybody from John Tortorella down is playing to win. That structure has to be thinking about the playoffs. Has to be.
Well, sure. Well, and I told you this last week, because what did I even tell you, like, pretty early on in the show last week when we did it too? I said, this team has the ability, potentially, the way that they've played some of these games and the way that they're always competitive and the way they're trying to win, they could screw around and win 35 games. That doesn't make them a playoff team per se, because you're gonna face tough competition throughout the year. I mean, like, you're still going to, like, first of all, they're not going to win every single game that's against teams like Columbus. I mean, they already proved it with the San Jose game. They're not going to win every game against Columbus, San Jose, take Chicago. Well, Anaheim, they're done with already. Anaheim, they're done with, and they split. So fair enough. But I'm talking about I'm talking about teams that are down there, because they're going to play eventually. They're going to play Chicago. They're going to play. They beat Edmonton, but will Edmonton be the same team? I don't know. Next time they face them, I mean, because they obviously we talked about that. They made the coaching change, all that.
Right. Nashville.
Nashville, Calgary. What happens when you face, and you're not, like, that's what I'm saying. You're not going to win every single game against those teams either. You're going to have a night where everybody thinks you like. We were questioning that even just kind of sitting here watching it tonight a little bit, because, like, as you're watching that Sunday night game, you're like, what happens if this is the one that they lose out? Like, they won 4 straight against Anaheim, LA, Carolina, Vegas. All teams that, realistically speaking, I can safely say 3 out of the 4 are making the playoffs.
Oh, for sure.
Anaheim is a kind of on the bubble right now. They could put it together. They might fizzle down the stretch. But
we've talked about Carolina's struggles, and they have turned it around pretty much. Like, other than the game against the Flyers, they have looked very good over the last couple of weeks.
That's what was so impressive about that game.
Yes.
That was one where you're like, well, look, they beat you the first time around, and they weren't in a great place the first time around. They're in a much better place now.
And if you went into Raleigh and took care of business.
And if you can handle it, then you've got some mental toughness on your side too.
Well, and that was also Carter Hart looking like a top 10 goalie in the world.
Sure, and like there's an element of truth to the fact that when they played Vegas, they caught Vegas kind of at a good time, because Vegas has been on an extended road trip. They had lost 3 of 5 coming in. It's like you're catching them at the right time for the hot start they were on when you played them in late October, and they were undefeated when you played them.
Right.
Now you're getting them where they've taken some lumps the last couple of weeks.
Right.
It's not a bad time to play them. Obviously, look at the way Columbus has played lately. I mean, that's why Columbus was such a kind of questionable game coming in, like, in terms of what could happen, because first of all, Columbus is in like every game they play. Like, these aren't blowout losses. They've been like competitive in all these games. But you had a team, you started this whole run off, you lose the game to San Jose, and the crazy part is, we didn't get a chance to do a show like immediately after the San Jose game. We had 2 more games to go off of that.
Right.
So because of the way the rest of California went, it kind of changed my tune a little bit on it.
Fair enough.
But when that San Jose game's over and they lose, I'm looking ahead and I went Anaheim, LA, Carolina, Vegas, then into Columbus. You could have lost, like, you could be on.
Might be a lot of losses.
Well, you had already lost to LA the first time around. So that was 2 straight losses when you lost to San Jose. And I'm sitting there looking ahead going, the next 4 are all like right up against this gauntlet of teams. That could turn into 6 before you know it. And Columbus could be number 7 if you're like really reeling from it. Like, think about, like, it's exactly the same thing Columbus is going through right now. They came into this game off of a back-to-back. And it's hard when you've lost 8 straight that you go, oh, this could be the one. You know,
Right.
it's much harder. The Flyers weren't thinking that coming in because the Flyers came out and had good jump. They had energy pretty much from the drop of the puck. Why? Because you won 4 in a row. You feel like you can win.
Yep.
Columbus is coming in going, I don't know. Well, Columbus is coming in with a whole boatload of problems to begin with because Patrick Laine's sitting out games as a healthy scratch. You've got, all sorts of other things.
Johnny Gaudreau getting benched.
I mean,
things are weird.
It's been rough. I mean, that's a team in a bad situation right now, And
I feel so bad for Pascal Vincent. Like, he got thrown into a situation that was entirely not his fault.
I think the whole thing is indicative of that because,
of course, whenever you fire your coach 3 days before the season starts, oh man, that is never, ever, ever a good thing. And Pascal Vincent was the guy, and he's kind of been the guy for a long time. He's been a name that's been out there. But they were probably expecting to get a year or 2 out of Babcock.
Well, I hear you, but you know what I mean, though. It's
I don't need absolute chaos.
I don't need to spend too much time on Columbus here because that's not our show, obviously.
Right.
But that it's a game where both sides are logical. It's ripe for the taking because of how they've played. Obviously, it's one that you're actually expected to win. But it's also one that's kind of the trap is present, because you just came off of the emotional highs of the 2 wins in California, had a bit of a break, managed to pull it off against Carolina, had another 2-day break, played not only an entertaining game, as we said, but the Vegas game had there's emotional investment from the players. You're trying to win this game, and there's you find a way to pull it out because let's also face the facts about
another. It's the first day of a back-to-back, and you're churning in the third period.
Well, let me ask you a question about something with the back-to-backs, by the way, because I want to see if you not know the answer, but you probably do. How many back-to-backs do you think the Flyers swept last season?
Oh, I bet the answer is less than. Okay, so I think it's less than 3. I'm gonna say 1.
It would be less than that. It was none.
It was none.
Well, swept. They split.
No, right, of course.
They split a good amount. It was not like they constantly play bad, but they would either lose the first one and find a way to win the second one, or they would win the first one and they would, the closest that they came, and maybe this is what you're thinking of, is they had won. I don't remember maybe it was Buffalo. I think they had played Buffalo and won a game in Buffalo on a Friday night.
There was a home on Sunday, right?
No, well, because that's not a back-to-back, so it was a Friday night.
I know, right.
They played on a Saturday against Carolina. They were leading. It was the day Tyson Forster scored his first goal, and they had a 4-3 lead with basically a second left, and the game was tied. 30 seconds later, it was over, and that was the closest they came to 2 straight wins in a back-to-back.
Yep. Okay. Wow, that is crazy. I didn't realize it was 0 times last year.
But my point, but you know where I'm going with my point. They won none last year. They've got 2 in 2 weekends.
It's a different team. Here's the thing.
Belief is a big thing.
Yeah, essentially. And I know I'm far broadening things here. So,
Sure.
You traded Kevin Hayes for Sean Couturier.
Kind of.
And you traded... Right. And you traded TDA for good Travis Sanheim.
Hold on. No, I'm going to disagree. No, I'm going to disagree with you. You traded Ivan Provorov for Travis Sanheim, and you traded
TDA for Sean Walker.
On Walker.
You're right. That's fair.
Even though, legitimately speaking, you traded Ivan Provorov for Sean Walker.
Sean Walker, I know. We also haven't really mentioned it. We talked briefly about Carter Hart against Carolina, but the goaltending has also been solid. We've had some goalies coming in on pretty short notice. We've had some funky situations.
There's something to be said for the fact that it was Sam Harrison won in Anaheim, Cal Peterson won in LA, Carter Hart comes back, wins in Carolina, Carter Hart again against Vegas, and now Sam Harrison against Columbus.
Yeah,
you're mixing it And look, I don't think Peterson was all that impressive. Like he had a really good game the second time around against LA. His first game was not good. The home game against LA was not good for Cal Peterson. Not even close.
No.
But you've gotten the 2 games that Arison's won on this stretch of 5 have been solid. I mean, he's not stealing them by any stretch. I mean, he's facing something like, I think in the 2 games, he's facing something like 20 to 25 shots in both. In Sundays, it was 22. So he's not getting peppered here. He actually, I think the Anaheim game was the most shots he's faced all season, to be honest, because that one, I think he faced 38, he made 35 saves.
Yeah,
that was the one that's the one where he made a lot of saves. But like 3 nights earlier when he was in goal for the loss in San Jose, I think he made 17 saves on 19 shots because that's what San Jose can do. And he let in 2 that, like, what are you going to do? But at the same time, it was like, it's not like there was a lot of traffic coming his way, so the save percentage doesn't look any better. You know, he's still getting there, but he's had, as far as I'm concerned, even that San Jose game, he's been better in the last handful of starts that he's made.
Absolutely.
Obviously, look, Carter Hart, you can only say so much before you get to the point where Carter Hart's gotten, like, here's the way I feel about Carter Hart. He's got an unfortunate record because the record is not reflective of some of the play that he's had in certain situations, especially some of, like, he was in goal in Vegas. They're right there with it. It's 2-1. You've given up 1 goal in 53 minutes of gameplay, and then they come back, they score 2, they get the win. You end up with a loss, regulation loss, no less. You're playing Carolina, same deal. You've got 2 saves, 2 goals against you for the whole game until there's 5 minutes left. Right. Then they score 1. And you take the loss in regulation. And as much as those are perfect rebuilding losses,
right?
He wants to win those games because he's a competitor, and this is how the locker room has been. So you've got to factor that in, and that's probably the biggest area of conversation lately, is because obviously they're winning games. You even mentioned it right off the top. At the given moment that most people are listening to this, I mean, if you're listening to it beyond the Sunday night slate of games,
right,
it's subject to change for the next couple of days. But as we speak recording this, they're second place in the Metropolitan Division. Now, who had that at nearing the quarter mark?
Right. Well, and let's get into that real quick, because there is an article on Sportsnet. It is from Mike Johnston from 2021. So it's a couple years old, and it's looking at a little bit of an older sample size. So basically the 5 years after the last work stoppage. So from 2013-14 to 17-18.
Okay.
80 teams made the playoff spot. 80 teams made the playoffs. 62 of those teams were in playoff spots on Thanksgiving. 77.5%.
Right. And now there's an element of this where, because I agree with you wholeheartedly on a lot of this, because that's the first marker. There's no question about that. And certainly there are teams that are going to continue that trend because they've firmly established themselves beyond the point, right? Like if I go and I look if I go to look from who's at the top of divisions to the wild card points, which it's not even that huge of a gap, but I think that the New York Rangers 5-point gap as we speak right now, and the Bruins 8-point gap to and it's probably actually, it's a little bit more. It's 1 more because you got to go to the first team out realistically.
Right.
So it's 6 and 9 for those teams. And it's like, I think that the Rangers and the Bruins are going to safely continue that trend, but I look at everybody else and I go, it's close. Like if you're there today, you might not be there tomorrow. Like, who is it in the West for that matter? Like this is a perfect example. Who the last 2 teams that would be in the playoffs in the West right now as we're recording this, and I'm not checking the scores of other games to try to figure this out later.
Right. No, absolutely not.
But at the moment are Anaheim and Arizona. They could both miss the playoffs as easily as they could make it because they're there at the moment. It's like
right. And it is an average of about 3 teams a year fall out. So the Flyers could very well be one of those teams, but statistically speaking, if if Anaheim and Arizona are 2 of them, right? And listen, here's what I'm saying. Realistically, I still think the Flyers are probably not a playoff team. They're probably still in rebuild central. But if you look towards the bottom of the league standings, they're starting to look like it's going to stay pretty crowded down there, right? San Jose ain't going anywhere. Chicago ain't going anywhere. Columbus ain't going anywhere. Edmonton, we assume they're going to turn it around to some degree, but what if they don't? What if they just ship this year and say, all right, well, I guess we'll do it next year? Right?
I don't see that. Yeah.
Same with Nashville, same with Minnesota, same with Calgary. Montreal, we expect to be down there. That's a lot of bad teams. Now, and we've talked before about the fact that, going on the winning streak early in the season doesn't do you a lot of good because all you do is accumulate useless points, whatever.
Right.
But what if you just kind of stay there? Like, it's not impossible that they kind of just stay there because there are so many bad teams. And at this point in time, the Flyers are not as bad as we thought they were.
Sure. And here's another factor to this, okay? There are 4 teams in the league right now. Boston, Vegas, the Rangers, and Vancouver that are sitting at 25 points or more to clear-cut set the top 4 in the league right now.
Man,
LA.
I feel great about that Vancouver preseason pick. I'm just saying.
I hear you.
Should have bet that one. Holy.
LA, Dallas, and Florida all have 23 points, so that's 5th, 6th, 7th, if you will.
That's a pretty clear second tier.
But I'm saying, hold on. But I'm starting at 5th from 23 points to 17 points, just a 6-point gap. That's not much here.
Right.
I can go from 5th to 24th.
Yeah.
It's tight across the board,
Absolutely.
and it's shuffling constantly. That's the hard part to kind of work through because it's shuffling so much.
And it's the kind of season where if Carter
it's where somebody you don't expect to make it makes it.
Well, and if Carter Hart gets healthy, he's going to win you a lot of hockey games. We've talked about this a lot. And we know that if he's playing well and the team is winning, John Tortorella's going to run him. To the point where we're going to complain about it, but he's going to run them. And
no kid. Yeah.
Hopefully, when he doesn't, Sam Ersson plays well. If Felix Sandstrom needs to come up, he can play well. If Cal Peterson needs to come up, he can play well. If whoever.
Right.
Might be a little early here, but are we starting to get 2010 vibes?
Well, you're early for sure.
Okay, and there's not a Chris Pronger on this team. Let me clarify.
No, there's not.
There's not. Absolutely not. But you know what? For today's NHL, okay, Chris Pronger that year probably still a top 10 defenseman in the league. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could Travis Sanheim be a top 10 defenseman in the NHL this year?
I mean, the start that he's had and gives that potential. The issue that you're going to have here is...
And I know they're not the same type of defenseman.
Well, it's not even that. It's the issue you're going to have is Travis Sanheim does not have the track record that Chris Pronger did to be established in that tier. And similarly, I think that like the Flyers of that era, of that moment, I'm choosing the word era very specifically there. Right. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's plastered all over the place around this building, right? As I gave the little quick scan for all those people on YouTube. Yeah. But you're talking about a team that at that time had budding stars in Mike Richards and Jeff Carter, had Danny Briere, who was Mr. Playoffs, had Simone Gagne with a track record, had, their forward had Claude Giroux on the up and coming group as well.
Okay. So you're just making my point for me. Okay. You ready?
Why? Because you're going to go off of their ages?
No, I'm going to go off of just comparisons here. Okay. Mike Richards, Sean Couturier. Okay.
Okay. I don't know about that one, but okay.
What? Is Sean Couturier better? What's your argument?
I was thinking more that you were going to compare similar type players, not,
listen, but the game has changed so much since 2010. It has changed.
Yes, the game has changed
so much since 2010.
It has.
An elite first line center. Mike Richards, Sean Couturier.
I suppose. I mean, here's the problem. The problem is I feel like that, and maybe it's perception. Maybe it's because let's be real. In 2010, it was still the Flyers. The reputation was still
the Broad Street Bullies.
No, it was much higher. They were much more highly regarded. So I think those players were more highly regarded. Like right now, I don't think people look at Sean Couturier back for the first time in nearly 2 years and say like Selke winner and all that. I don't think people go there. And he's the like the closest thing they have to that level. Like people don't even like I'm going to tell you right now, truthfully, people will not even say that about you. Got a guy. I'm bringing him up so we can get back to the Saturday or the Sunday game a little bit here. People won't say that about Travis Konechny, despite the fact that he scored his 11th goal of the season in Game 18.
That's Simone Gagne, by the way.
A little.
Okay. Danny Briere is easy. Cam Atkinson.
See, Claude
Giroux is easy. Owen Tippett. Come on.
You're not saying that just because they're both gingers, are you?
With wicked power play shots? I absolutely am. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's go a little further here.
I'm not trying to go too far ahead in this. I don't want to make comparisons for every player on the 2022 or 2023-24 Flyers.
Okay.
To the 2010 Flyers here. That's a little much.
Because that roster, through various points in the season, did also have Aaron Asham, Dan Carcillo, Blair Betts, Daryl Powell.
Gee, I wonder who all those guys are.
Exactly.
So Aaron Asham. No, I can't even do Aaron.
We're not even going one for one.
No. Just hear me out.
Okay.
Because I was going to sit and say Aaron Asham had more scoring touch in that season than Nick Delorier has. So I can't do that. Maybe Carcillo then. I was going to say Blair Betts is easy. I think Blair Betts and Garnet Hathaway belong in the same sentence.
Absolutely.
So who's the star of the game from Sunday? Who's Ryan Poehling?
Ryan Poehling. I'm looking through this roster here.
Maybe Ryan Poehling's Daryl Powell.
Villy Leno.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Guy who can skate pretty well. Yeah.
Give me some Villy Leno. Yep.
Well, I don't want to play this game anymore.
Because you know I'm right.
No, because we're getting too far off track.
Okay.
Going down a road I don't want to go down on November 19th.
Okay, listen. I'm just saying. That team was the 7th seed.
I know.
Okay.
And that's exactly what they want everybody to feel about stuff like that, is that you have a shot. I mean, we just watched it with Florida too. I know.
If and when this happens, listener, viewer, whatever you're doing, watching on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, by the way. Remember that I said it first. Okay? Thank you. Okay.
I mean, but either way, that is part of the cool part of the equation, right?
Sure.
That you're getting like as I'm going through, like I'm talking about Ryan Poehling having a 3-point game. Who had that on their radar when and like when we were talking to John Tortorella after the game was over, he made a good point, because one of the things he likes about him is he bet on himself. I'm going to sign a 1-year contract to see what happens, and he's a fit. He's been a fit. And it doesn't mean he's played every night either. That's the other part of it.
Right. No, and he's looked great when he's been in the lineup. And from all reports, it seems like he's had a great attitude about it when he hasn't. So it is great to see. And it's the kind of guy that is a valuable piece.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Do we want to start to get to the week ahead so we can get closer to putting a bow on this? By the way, I feel like we should also mention, I don't want to have a big conversation about this again, because we've already been down this road before, but I was on my way down to the center on Sunday. Once I got here, I found out the lineup changes that were in place. And yet, look, they get Bobby Brink back into the lineup, and that's a good thing, because you want to see Bobby Brink. But it was Morgan Frost again, which only furthers the point of it, like that it is like I don't want to use the words it's personal, but you can tell that there's like
it feels like there's a disconnect there.
It feels like we're on the road to one result and one result only.
Get him out of town.
Yeah. Well, because how long is a player going to put up with being the only guy who seems to get scratched?
Yeah, and you can't blame him for it. Absolutely. And honestly, Morgan Frost is the ideal change of scenery guy. He's the ideal change of scenery guy, and it's a shame to say, but yeah,
right. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, towards his credit, he had every reason. Like, I was waiting for the Mark Stahl insertion because he was cleared. It didn't happen over the weekend. He actually sat him for 2 games. Like, I'm not changing the decor. They're winning.
I was say you're not changing it now on a 5-gamer.
Well, I'll wait and see. I'll wait and see on what happens with that because you never know, especially with like with 2 days off before your next game. But
speaking of that next game,
right, one more wrestling really, because the other thing that came out on Sunday was Felix Sandstrom on waivers, the long-awaited kind of what's the follow-up to he's not one of the 2 guys that you're rolling with. That'll be the Monday news drop we always talk about. Obviously, we're waiting for 2:00.
Right.
To find out whether he clears it. I think he will personally, just because he's coming off of it. He's coming off an injury. He hasn't really played this year. When I just don't. And now I think you've waited a long enough period of time that I think that there's
the hype
not really
kind of died off.
Well, there's not. I don't think there's as many takers. So I would leave it at that. But you get the point. So all right, looking ahead. Let's go ahead.
and we'll see. And if he does make it through to Lehigh Valley, I think he will. It will be excellent for him to get some playing time there.
Well, he needs to play, so that's why.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking ahead, the NHL did the Flyers a favor. They don't have to go very far from home this week for Thanksgiving. You're playing the Islanders, the Rangers, and then the Islanders again.
They've done this a lot, by the way. The Islanders is a common trip over this weekend.
And then the Rangers almost always come in for the Black Friday game.
It's been a lot. It's been a few different teams, but yes, it does feel like a lot. The interesting part is, and we've kind of talked about this, or we hinted at it a little bit already, but so one of those teams that's not, kind of getting closer toward the bottom as we get closer to the bottom.
The Rangers are struggling.
No, the Islanders.
The Islanders are struggling.
The
Rangers are leading the division. No, they're a great team.
The Rangers are the team that you're going to look forward to watching this team against, like Vegas, because you want to see, can they pass the test.
That is a barometer game for sure.
Right. But that's the thing. So what does that make the Islanders games?
The
Islanders games start to fall into a territory of, they're not now, not exactly, but they fall into a territory of.
You going to say trap game?
Well, the Columbus kind of games.
Columbus was absolutely a trap game.
Well, right, but I wouldn't have. You know what though? I don't want to call it trap game because when they played Buffalo twice in the same week as a home and home, I didn't think that was a trap.
No.
To be honest, at the time they played Buffalo, it was kind of level playing field. They were both around the same spot in the standings, honestly, at that time, because we're going back almost 3 weeks at this point. So, yeah, at that time. That wasn't really anything that was a trap. That was just 2 teams that kind of were even. And they actually, the Flyers actually outplayed them both games. They lost one of them because luck was clearly not on their side. And the other one, they won.
Right.
So it is what it is. I'm curious to see how this goes. Obviously, the unique part of this is that it's not a home and home. It's 2 games. It's one on the road on one side of the holiday, one on the other side.
Right.
And obviously, we'll talk again and do another show before we get to the following week's worth of games. So we don't need to go much further than that.
Right, of course.
But that's what I'm saying. You've got, because of where they are, you've got 2 games that are uniquely kind of positioned to be potential winnable games if you play your style. And then you've got that barometer in the middle.
That barometer game is going to be enormous. And the New York Rangers, we've talked about it, are a fantastic team. And I think the Flyers at this point in the season have earned the respect that you're probably going to see a starting goaltender. It's
depending on who's around and who's healthy too. I mean, they've had some.
That is fair.
They've had some issues. I think it's close, but there's a lot of day-to-day stuff going on with them. So.
And that is a premium matchup. It's going to be on NHL Network. It is at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's your Black Friday game. They do it. Flyers play in that pretty much every year. It's a marquee game.
Well, as the next home game, because obviously they play the Islanders on the road first on Wednesday. Then they get this one as the next home game. And I'm not trying to jump the gun with people are going to start coming out in droves to watch this team per se. I was gonna bring that up. Here's the catch. We already know what happens when the Rangers play in town.
Are you nervous?
No, I think it's going to be much more of an even crowd.
I agree.
I don't think are you going to have Rangers fans here? Of course you are. Are you going to have more Are you going to have more Flyers fans maybe this time around? I think potentially.
It's a game that if it was being played in the Spectrum, we'd have fights. There's going to be a lot of Rangers fans. We're going to have a lot of Flyers fans. It's right. It's the day after a holiday.
I'm genuinely because if the season was going the way that I probably thought it was going to go, we were looking at probably another like
another Rangers home game.
Well, 70-30 Ranger, yeah.
Yeah, this is cheap Madison Square Garden.
Now I'm honestly hoping like 50-50 better be where the bar is set, and you kind of like 60-40 Flyers would be nice.
I want the Let's Go Rangers chance to be booed down. Like that, we did not get that in the last game. They were loud and clear the entire game.
That's because by the time all that happened,
of course,
it was over. You know,
and that was absolutely acceptable at the time.
Sure,
but given where your team is right now, you got to be there, dog.
Yep.
If you have season tickets, go. You have the responsibility to go. If you sold them in the preseason to your Rangers fan, take them back.
but. It's going to be an interesting game though. Like it really is because you've got like that's the situation you're in terms of, you know, you very well could be coming into that game with, you know, now you're at 5, you're going to go for 6 against a team that you could beat with the Islanders.
Yep.
Is that where you're going to be? And even if you're not, I don't care if you're not because 5 of the last 6 is still going to be really good.
You've proven yourself to me at this point that I will not be surprised if this team loses, 30 of their next 50 games.
Right.
But I also, at this point, will not be surprised if they win 30 of their next 50 games.
I'm also I'm not going to put it past this team at this point to still have like the injury that kind of derails some things with the lineup or whatever to the key guy. That was the other factor that I had factored in, like when I was talking about where I thought they would finish, because the one part of the equation is the defensemen are playing better than I would have thought would happen. The other part of the equation is that no one's gotten hurt for a long period of time. Yeah, Sean Couturier missed a couple of games. Yeah, Carter Hart missed really only 3 games, I think it was, with injury. The other 2 were illness.
Yeah.
And you still found a way to make that work. I mean, who else have you? What? Because am I going to throw? Because I'm going to throw Rasmus Ristolainen in and Mark Stahl in. Stahl.
Good things.
Well, Stahl, I'm going to take or leave because Stahl was supposed to always be kind of a rotational piece.
And I don't know right.
And I don't know if he was ever going to be because yes, he's like Torts loves him, so who knows? But I'm sure like Ristolainen would be playing.
Right.
That's not a deliberate hold the guy out of the lineup kind of thing. Like he would have, I don't know how much, like, I don't know. I don't want to speak for how much of a difference he would make from what they've gotten because we don't really know. But on paper, it would have made a difference in perception.
Absolutely.
It has to. Right now, look at your team on paper right now. Your bottom pairing defensively was Igor Zamula and Louis Belpedio.
And you know what?
I think I know, but I think if you slotted in Rasmus Ristolainen, that gives you a little bit more credibility on paper.
Fair enough. And, we may see that at some point soon, but as of right now, we kind of have what we have.
And we'll see where it goes. I mean, the one thing to watch for in the next week also is that you've got, because of those 2 days, like without a game anyway, that puts the Islander game on the table for all of this, especially with Stahl being cleared. It puts the Ranger game on the table. It obviously the second Islander game comes into play too. Like this whole week has the potential for guys to kind of be in and out a little bit, and we'll see what happens. But certainly there's a lot of guys that are earning a lot of ice time and a lot of respect and a lot of the belief of the coach and all of that. Like, it is that is what it is. Like you kind of can't deny. And I'm going to tell you right now, what happens when a team has won a few games in a row.
Sure.
That locker room was vibing.
Yeah, and a term you hear in football a lot is that a team is playing for each other.
Right.
This team is playing for each other. You can tell guys are out there putting team efforts together. They are buying into the system.
Yeah.
They are playing John Tortorella hockey for better or for worse, and right now it's for better. And when you have a good goalie, John Tortorella hockey is going to go your way. And so far they've had some pretty good goalies.
Definitely.
And we will see if that continues throughout the week. And we will all hope to be thankful for it on Thanksgiving here on Thursday. So we did want to take a second here and extend some holiday wishes from the You Would Think family to your family. We are heading towards the end of the show here, so make sure to follow us on the social media at YWT Podcast. Follow Kevin at Kevin_Durso pretty much everywhere, including on Instagram for those post-game updates. And find the show everywhere you find your podcasts, including sportstalkphilly.com. So Kevin, I think that'll do it.
Yeah.
How is the show live from the Farg?
Interesting, especially when it's like as well, especially because the building's pretty much completely empty. I might end up being one of the last ones here tonight because of this. So
All
we'll
right,
see how.
well,
But so I'm gonna get out of here so I can go home and get ready for the week ahead. So
we'll let you get out of here, and we will be back with the show next week, right? We're not taking a week off, are we?
no, we'll be back next week.
Okay, we will be back next week. All right, then. We will be back next week, same time, same channel. Until then, we'll see ya.